Good day, my name is Maria Petrova, and today I want to talk to you about a common misconception among professionals, that setting up a template is time-consuming and difficult. Spoiler alert. If you are a technician with no experience in modeling, a technician with experience but gaps in the theory of template placement, someone who works with upper forms because it's easier, or you spend a lot of time setting up templates, then you definitely need to watch this video until the end. Work speed comes from having a clear step-by-step process and properly selected materials. When you know exactly what you're doing at each stage, why you're doing it, and what it achieves, that's when speed comes, because you don't make unnecessary movements. Speed is about understanding, not about rushing. I've put together a list of little things that steal your time and money, and at the end, I'll show you how I set up templates myself. Mistake number 1 is poor preparation of the nail plate. Both the length and any remaining coating need to be brought down to 0. Mistake number 2 is placing the template under the nail. For some reason, everyone thinks this is easier and more effective. In reality, this leads to cracks and lifting, as well as steps and unevenness. To avoid all these issues, you need to place the template flush against the nail plate. Mistake number 3 is using bad scissors, or more precisely, dull scissors. The result of your work and the accuracy of the cut depend directly on the scissors. Choosing the right scissors is at least as important, if not more important, than choosing good templates. For cutting out the template, I use sharp Yoko manicure scissors, which I sharpen regularly. You can use a poorly made template if it's cut evenly, and it will work, but even the best template, if cut crookedly, will have to be thrown away. That means wasted time and materials. You can see how dull scissors crumple and crease the template. At the same time, sharp scissors cut cleanly, like butter, creating a smooth, beautiful line. It may seem like scissors are a small detail, but the result and speed of work speak for themselves. The 4th mistake is uneven gluing of the template. For some reason, many technicians neglect marking and believe that symmetry is not a necessary condition for good work. Uneven gluing leads to the template itself being skewed. This means you won't be able to place it straight under the nail, and the skew will carry through the entire length. And finally, the last but not least, the 5th mistake is improper handling of the template. You need to handle templates very carefully, not grab them roughly. Otherwise, the template can get creased, and it'll be almost impossible to fix it. You'll have to throw it away and take a new one, which again leads to wasted materials and extra time. What does proper placement of the template give us? A highly paid service, nail sculpting. The opportunity to earn more while working the same amount of time. The ability to transform any hand. No cracks at the points of ingrowth, a perfect underside without steps or leaks. You can work without auxiliary tools such as dual forms, tweezers, or clips. Extraordinary design techniques and creative shapes that are only possible with lower forms. By eliminating unnecessary steps and choosing the right tools, you will achieve a perfect result in a short time.
Today I'm going to show you this beautiful and delicate salon almond shape. But the first step is to remove the entire length of the free edge. We remove it so that we're not tempted to place a form under the nail. At this stage, you also need to remove all the old coating down to the bare nail, especially if it wasn't your work originally. We remove the length with a 240 grit file, and this is the result we should get. As an elastic base, I use acrylic rubber base. It has excellent adhesion and a liquid consistency. Apply it in a thin, neat layer. I usually don't use a primer under this base unless the condition of the nail plate leaves much to be desired. I prepare the forms, 5 forms for one hand at once, and I cut out a window for my fingers so that I can put the forms on while wearing gloves. At this stage, you can also remove the perforation area. These forms have it's intended for creative length, but we don't need it for short nails. I slightly pinch the form to match the arch of the natural nail, try it on, place the form at the height I'll be using while it's still open, and check what the width of the nail plate will be. These forms have markings for width, and I draw these diagonal lines for myself, along which I will cut out the width of the nail plate. I cut along the diagonal. Next, I make the tabs for the side walls, and I cut those by eye. I don't really see the point in spending time measuring, so I just cut a bit more than what's marked on the form. Again, I pinch it, try the form on the finger, and now I look at the distance I have between the point of ingrowth and the form. Here it's about 1 millimeter. We need to cut the depth of the form's entry into the nail plate by exactly 1 millimeter so that we don't get any steps or leaks. I can mark out this 1 millimeter with the tips of my scissors, and then I start cutting with the middle of the scissors, creating a neat rounded line. This line should follow the curve of the free edge of the natural nail plate. Only in this case can I be sure that the material won't seep under the nail, and there won't be any steps or cracks on the underside. Everything will be smooth and neat. I peel the form off the paper backing and glue the lower tabs together symmetrically. As we've established, this is very important. I open up the form with my index finger, hold it with my thumb and middle finger, place the form flush against the nail plate, and stick the upper tabs to the finger. The form should fit as snugly as possible. If I notice any misalignment, I can peel off one side a little, adjust the form relative to the central axis of the finger and nail, straighten everything out, and only then proceed to fix the form with gel. Since the underside will have a little secret, I chose a high viscosity gel, Confiture 00 in clear, as the base layer. I apply the gel right up to the edge of the nail plate in a thin, even layer, going a bit beyond the length I planned, and I apply it as if extending it outward, stretching the gel as thin as possible at the end. I cure it with a flashlight for just 10 to 15 seconds, depending on the power of your lamp. My lamp is 24 watts, which is quite powerful. And after that, we close the form. First, we symmetrically stick together the second lower tabs under the finger, then move to the top, firmly pressing the form under the finger itself, and then seal the form all the way, creating the narrowing we need for the free edge. A thin gel base is another key to a perfect underside. For the design on the underside, I chose my favorite stamping technique. Here I have an abstract stamping plate and a red polish. Before applying the stamping, I always carefully degrease my clear base. I make sure not to press too hard so I don't mess it up, because right now it's barely holding on. Just as carefully, I transfer the stamping, again making sure not to press on the clear base. And this is the kind of beautiful abstract design I'll have on the underside. As the main color for modeling, I chose a white gel. The 17th shade of Confiture High Viscosity Gel won me over with its incredible opacity. I'll be modeling the entire nail with this gel in 3 stages. Why 3? Because I want to make the application as precise as possible to minimize filing. In the first stage, I set the length and shape. It's like I'm painting the future shape and length of the lower parallel and the free edge with my brush, so I can immediately see the form and avoid piling on a bunch of excess material later. What makes this gel highly viscous? It's that it doesn't run or spread. I work with it quite slowly. I haven't sped up the video, so you can see how the material behaves when working with a classic round gel brush. Next, I'll refine the shape with a thin brush. As you can see, I turn the finger in different directions and the gel doesn't move anywhere. At the same time, it self-levels very well. This is such an amazing and very convenient paradox for the technician. With the first layer, I set the shape and length. With the second layer, I work up to the middle of the natural nail plate and will fill in the height difference that I got between the natural nail and my improvised base. I place a drop in the center, right where I have a dip in height, and distribute the material only there. I work with small drops. This is also to avoid wasting material. For some reason, many technicians still believe that you need to pile on more material just in case and then file it down later. Apparently, these technicians just don't know how to calculate their material usage. And if they do the math, they'll realize that they're throwing away more than half the jar, filing it straight into the trash. That's why technicians themselves have these misconceptions that sculpting is expensive, first and foremost for them and only then for the client. And also that sculpting takes a long time. It takes a long time when you don't know how to work, when you don't know the technique, or haven't chosen the right working materials. After I carefully remove the form, I need to trim my thin gel base with scissors because it's quite flexible, and if I start filing it right away, there's a chance I might break it off from underneath. With a 240 grit file, I shape the free edge, going around the entire perimeter of the form. In general, I very rarely use 180 grit files in my work, simply because nowadays there are such amazing materials that can easily be filed with a 240 grit file. Plus, I apply the product quite precisely, so there's no need for a coarse file. I go over the surface, removing all excess bulk around the natural nail, the sidewalls, and create a smooth transition between the material and the natural nail. At this stage, I also set the final thickness of the tip. I file the lower parallels and shape a smooth rise towards the free edge. Many technicians, when filing the almond shape, forget about the existence and importance of the lower parallel. Without it, your almond shape won't look as beautiful and the free edge will stick up very high. After that, we blend the lower parallels with the free edge, finalize the shape, and don't forget that we need to thoroughly buff the surface. Gel will spread much better on a buffed surface. And now we already have this beautiful shape taking form. At this stage, you can send the client to wash their hands. Now we move on to the next and final step of working with gel. Apply a thin layer of gel over the entire nail from the cuticle to the free edge. leaving about 0.5 mm gap from the cuticle. This will be our wet base on which we will level the gel. In this case, I'm quite comfortable working with a high viscosity gel for leveling, because even though the length isn't great, the nail plate is quite voluminous, and if I had chosen a low viscosity gel, I probably wouldn't have had enough height. And even if it had been enough, the gel would have spread out in different directions. I'll repeat that one of the big advantages of high viscosity gel is that it self-levels beautifully, but at the same time it doesn't run or flood anywhere. As a result, we get a very thin yet strong structure using just one material, and I wouldn't be myself if I didn't file a little more. Well, I really love a crisp architecture. And even though the gel is self-leveling, it still tends to spread at the free edge. I go along the perimeter, the lower parallels, and file the free edge just a tiny bit from the top to create a really sharp, clean line at the free edge. Of course, after filing, I don't forget to go over the filed surface with a buffer at 240 grit as well. For the design, I decided to use stamping to make these cute little hearts. Naturally, we finish with a hard top coat and admire the beauty we've created. Oh right, I almost forgot to tell you a secret. I used matte templates, so the undersides turned out matte as well. As you can see, creating thin, resonant, and elegant extensions with just one jar is absolutely possible, as is quickly applying the template without any steps or leaks, and even with a unique design. This was Masha Petrova with you. Set your templates and enjoy your work.